Welcome, Lake Nona Middle School teachers, to Classroom Management. In this lesson, I will introduce you to the tools and strategies that will help you build a productive collegial classroom. During this lesson, you should pause, reflect, and envision the classroom you hope to have. What are the processes you'll need to implement to make that happen? I'll be able to share some best practices with you as we move through this segment. Keep an open mind and be creative. Here we go. Today we're going to discuss 5 key elements to the structured classroom. Keep in mind, these are the initial steps. As you gain experience and get to know your students, your methods will adapt and change. And that's okay. That's the right thing to do. You should evolve as a teacher, and your students will adapt to your strategies. First, we'll define expectations, who makes the rules and how. We will address routines and procedures and how to implement them. Then how to build a plan that helps you respond to those behaviors. From there, we will discuss building relationships with students and parents. And lastly, planning for engagement to avoid off-task behaviors. Let's get started. Who makes the rules? Well, you do. This is your classroom now. And your classroom is your community, and that community should be almost a democracy. You are the leader, but it takes input from all stakeholders to create an environment where everyone feels welcomed, valued, and accepted, which is no easy feat. So to start, you have to define your expectations. What do you want to see, hear, and feel each day in your classroom? For example, we expect to see students arriving on time. We would like to hear students speaking respectfully to each other. We should all feel like we're part of a team. Your rules are best written in a positive statement like be polite, be prepared. Involve your students in the decision making. Different class periods may have different needs. Maybe you have your non-negotiables and each class adds 2. This is how you build community, involving the constituents in the conversation and the decision making. Next, you need to communicate these rules to your people. These rules should be direct, and they should be constantly reviewed and inserted into daily classroom conversations. The rules should be posted so you can refer to them easily when they are or are not being followed. These rules should also be communicated to your parents. It's important for parents to know your expectations so that they can support their students and support you if they're broken. Be consistent and make sure you follow through. This is what makes your classroom effective. Students know that you will enforce the rules for every student all the time. You are the teacher who treats everyone the same. Successful teachers stick to their rules, and so do their students. Take a minute to preview some of these examples. On your reflection sheet, jot down 3 you think you want to have in your classroom. Use the examples as the key. Be short, be direct, and be clear. Classroom management systems are effective because they increase student success by creating an orderly learning environment that enhances students' academic skills and competencies, as well as their social and emotional development. By instituting routines and procedures, you create an environment where students know what to expect and how to act. There shouldn't be any surprises in your classroom. The more easily students can slip into the routine each day, the easier your job will be. When we discussed expectations, we said, you need to know what your class should sound like, look like, and feel like. The same goes for routines and procedures. Envision how your class should enter the room. What will you be doing? What will the students be doing? How will they exit the room? Talk about it with your kids. Let them know what you want to see and hear. It should take conscious effort. The biggest mistake I've seen with new teachers is the assumption. Don't make any assumptions. Be explicit. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. Then do it again. And praise them when they do it right. The same goes for special procedures. The first time you do something, think about teaching students how to complete the task, not just the task itself. How to move, where to go, who goes first, how much time do they have, how will your students work in groups or partners, how will they get materials if they need them. Also remember, you have one routine and 3 or 4 procedures, but your students have 7 different teachers with different systems. So don't make anything overly complicated. Use step-by-step instructions and practice, practice, practice. Nobody is perfect. Remember that you're working with mushy adolescent brains. They're definitely not perfect. So talk about the plan with them and be flexible. The best procedures are determined by mutual consent, meaning the community in your classroom agrees to it and understands the purpose. So let's look at this clip on power teaching from Dr. Dexter and see how many routines and procedures you can notice him using in his college classroom. So once you've set up your ideal systems, what happens when they just don't listen? On the left. It's important to highlight when kids are doing the right thing. Tell them when they're doing well. This doesn't come naturally to everyone, but give yourself a goal. Each class period, you're going to say something positive every 10 minutes or 4 times per class. Reinforce the good things your kids do. On the opposite end, don't glamorize anything against the rules. Make it a point to talk to students in a calm voice and not always in front of the whole class. If a student continues to disobey, follow up with the consequences. Be clear in your expectations, how to change the behavior, and what happens next. This is where you need to communicate with parents on the next steps and possible punishments. Consult the faculty handbook or have a conversation with your PLC about the processes you're all putting in place. Again, consistency is so important. Don't make idle threats. If you say, I'm calling your parents tonight, you better get on the phone and call those parents. Document it. Let them know what's going to happen next. Be honest and be clear. Remind them of the rules you all decided on and tell them nothing has to happen next. It's up to the student and how they react. Take a minute to reflect on this quote. Research shows teachers who had high quality relationships with their students had 31% fewer discipline problems, rule violations, and other related issues than teachers who did not build high quality relationships with their students. Effective teacher-student relationships are not about being friends with students or getting students to like you. The most effective relationships are characterized by teachers who exhibit appropriate levels of dominance, assertiveness, and cooperation. To build relationships with students, they need to know you respect them as learners and you care about them as individuals. What are some strategies you can use to get to know your students? Think about some information exchanges to start the school year, interviewing each other, games, and activities. As your students grow and mature throughout the year, revisit their likes and dislikes. Take interest in their activities outside of the school day. Attend sporting events and performances. Students perform for teachers who care. What are some ways you can show students that you care while maintaining high expectations and boundaries? Here is the number one secret to success. Engage students in learning. Students who are actively involved in the learning process do not have time to act out. This takes planning, preparation, and a ton of energy. The most successful teachers do not allow their students downtime. Each minute is focused on the learning targets for that day. Participation is not an option. Students who never know when it'll be their turn to share have to stay engaged in the conversation in order to keep up. Use an electronic or a random system that helps you choose participants in a fair way. In middle school, autonomy is an integral component of development. Choice and interest can be determining factors for the learning environment. Incorporating movement can also help those rambunctious little bodies stay focused. Engagement also means offering varying levels of difficulty so that students have opportunities for success. Some activities that involve movement and the whole class may not have the rigor of partner work, which involves inquiry or experimentation, but that's okay. You need to balance the difficulty levels with the activity level. A couple of resources that I found useful. You have to see what works best for you and your students. I know a lot of teachers at Lake Nona start using Class Dojo, which helps track behavior and interactions, so when students volunteer and when you call on them. EducatorsTechnology.com has tons of references for using these types of technology in the classroom. TeacherVision.com has a lot of printables and templates that you can start to use. And then over here on the right, you'll see Classroom Management That Works by our good friend Bob, who you're going to meet soon. So from here, the next step is to start thinking about your own class. In this course, you're going to find a link to a Google Doc that will help you get some ideas down on paper. It's not brain surgery, but it requires thoughtfulness and effort. You can do it. And when you get stuck, seek out some resources and even maybe some experienced teachers. They can definitely tell you what works and what doesn't, but you're never going to know until you try. So good luck, and go ahead and watch this video, and then you're going to be ready to get started.